Hi. Uh, this is another try, trying to record some information about Synology security, about protecting the NAS itself and protecting certain applications on it. I'm not going to go into every detail, but I'll show around a few that I found more important or more useful than others. And focus would be running some container application and restricting the access as much as possible so that basically you don't have random people administering this Synology NAS, and maybe they wouldn't even see it existing on the network. So we can start by looking at the system control center, system preferences. The most basic thing that I usually check is here the terminal settings. If I want SSH enabled, I'll go into the extended sessions and set it to high. Or if there's a corporate environment where there's actual rules which cryptographic algorithms to use, then it can be managed here. And I mean, in case of Synology, they have a business interest to have these set up properly, and you see there is no super odd things. The all Diffie-Hellman groups are disabled and stuff like that, which is great. So I'm just gonna keep it on high, which is good enough for my purposes. I don't have anybody making different rules or something. I'm not changing the port or something like that. It doesn't have much benefits for me. If the system held highly confidential data, I think I would have to turn on something like this here, but I'm not sure anymore. There is some limitations with SSH. I haven't ever seen that two-factor authentication works when connecting via SSH. So in any case where I don't want public access to, or no, where I want to make sure that the two-factor authentication is absolutely solid, and that, for example, warm rules are safely upkept, I have to work and restrict the SSH access and keep it turned off normally. Yeah, there's a few problems on that. So basically, this should be off in a secure environment for all time when you do not actually have to run something via SSH on it. And otherwise, it can be on, but the security settings should be applied. For SNMP, if there is somebody who knows how to manage it, it should be on SNMP v3 with SHA and AIS for the security. In the case where you don't have any privileged data and you don't care, you can have it on SNMP v2. Basically, that makes the SNMP traffic readable, and also the SNMP agent on the system is more easily to access. That's a different one, should not forget. It's not just about data leakage, it's also about access security. With SNMP v3, you're not going to even be able to set up a proper connection if the privacy is enabled. Okay, so that's for SNMP and for the first menu to normally look at least in my case. Currently, I'm running a rebuild because I still have one disk that I didn't replace, and it dies every like once every day or something, or every week. I don't know. But I already have removed one that I need to send back to the vendor, and I didn't start on the second one yet. So it's just rebuilding, and it's going to be a bit slow for the moment. The next thing is in the security menu, basically all the HTTP things I think is pretty normal. You don't improve the browser compatibility because basically there is nothing in this century where you need that. You disable iframes, we don't need a dashboard or anything, and you make sure that any logon session is killed when it reboots. I normally change the auto logout timer because if it's set to 15 or 20 minutes, I don't recall what the default is. It's highly annoying and unproductive. So I put it on 2 hours, which is basically something like the time period between a coffee break and lunch or something like that. So basically, it's enough for one work task to complete, and that's how long it should be active. Even if you have to go to a different browser and do something for a moment, you might want to continue, and it should respect that. I allow myself to disable two-factor authentication on my lab NAS. If this is a critical system, it should, with personal data or with confidential data, this should never be enabled. It should keep you logged out, and it should also kick you out over time. So these two would be removed, and this would be long enough to actually support people and not be an annoying thing. That's it up here. So, and normally these menus here are folded up or something and not visible or not enabled. You have to look for them. There's a few in the security menu which are not enabled by default. Scroll to the right direction. I'm sorry, I'm too stupid to click at the moment. Actually, no, we're fine on this one. We don't want to have a proxy enabled or anything like that. That would be if you have a pre-authentication, and you normally don't have that. It's nice for a complete Windows environment if you have the setup, but it's not common. Okay, the next thing, two-factor authentication should be enforced for certain groups or for everybody or for all administrators. So normally you have it enabled on administrators. I didn't finish the setup here or something, and that's why it's off for the whole group, but I have enabled it for all the users that I actually want to have it. The alternative is to have also certain groups that need to have it. Normally it would be enabled here. In my case, as I said, it's enabled on my account, and basically this is the test NAS, so I'm messing around with it a lot, so that's why I don't have it on all the time. Adaptive MFA is like on Microsoft side also, that sometimes you get extra requests. It can be on, and then there is the account protections. That's the part that you have to click to see. Yeah. These are not fully enabled normally, and you have to be a bit careful. Like, for example, if you have Windows integrated user authentication and the timers here are wrong, then you can be thinking that you're not able to log in or something. I normally adjust it a bit so that this time frame, for example, it can be longer. I mean, I often mistype, but I would like to notice if something is too wrong. So maybe we put it like this. And there is also a definition of trusted clients, which can be honestly, I don't see much of a benefit with it. If you have an admin client, there would be one that you only use if you already have messed up stuff or something like that, or clients on your server network or servers actually, where you already have external protections, then you might change things here. As you can see, they're managed in a different menu. I don't recall properly, so I'm just gonna set the same limits for this anyway. 30, sorry, and keep it blocked. Yeah. Okay, apply. If we look at the firewall, that's the thing that I actually wanted to make the video about. It's by default, it's not enabled. There is notifications, but they would send out per email or to the mobile app. That's pretty useless. And if you want to have an actual firewall profile, just a second, there is a drop down here. It can be set to default. That's also what you get if you reset networking, if you locked yourself out or something, like by shortly pressing the reset button. I created one, and you can see you can create multiple. You can set them as active. Let's see if there's, okay, that's the same dialog as if I open it from back here. So let's go to edit. I created one, then I edit it, then I have to make it active. The firewall rule set in Synology is okay-ish, but you have to be a bit careful. It's basically first match is selected. You can turn on and off rules, which matters. And what I've noticed is that sometimes it reorders things. So whenever you go into this menu and you make any changes to the firewall rules, before you save them, you should validate, is the deny all rule in the last spot of the rule set. I mean, you can drag them here, but if it is not, you're gonna lock yourself out faster than you can look. And like on 5 times or so that you edit this three times, it's gonna shift the order. So this is really important. For the rule set logic, what I've done is, in this case, for the example, I'm allowing ICMP from everyone because I want to have like not people stumble around forever, especially in case that maybe they have a messed up rule set or something. I'm only allowing SNMP from the monitoring system. In my case, I'm allowing access to the management and to all file services from my whole network, like in this office. That's the only space this network exists. It's a one room network. What I'm trying to show is you can differentiate. You could remove the management interface and only allow the clients facing services like file access from the whole network and have a subset that would be one role above in this case, or maybe, restrict the access to the admin interface to the systems that do the administration, and differentiate what is a client access and allow that from more clients, from more client-facing networks. You can separate this. And the list of services is basically, if we look at that, you can have rules for ports, you can have IP sets in this case. And if we look at the list of ports, basically you only enable the services that you actually provide. And you have the port numbers here. There was some way to also add something, I think. Let me see. That's if I go to the port-based rules. Yeah, okay. User-defined. We have one of that kind. This one might be a user-defined one. I'm not entirely sure. No, that's also an integrated one. So if you have a full Docker service defined, it is registered in here, from what I recall. And this is basically the most important or interesting rule for this case today. So I'm exporting this port right from the Docker service. That means I don't have encryption. We're going to look at ways how to do that differently. But the interesting part is it's automatically registered here. And I'm allowing access to everyone for this. And one could instead use specific IPs to allow defined list of clients or defined network. So defined network in my original demo setup is interesting because I can set up a VPN on the Synology and install the VPN client on my client computer, and then I can, while I'm on the normal LAN client network, run a secured VPN connection into the Synology. And if I would only allow access from the VPN client subnet here, then I would have basically I wouldn't have to expose my specific service to anything but VPN clients, and that's pretty nice. Yeah, okay. That's SNMP for monitoring. We had that, and basically, or finally, we have the default deny rule, which has to be in place. Otherwise, the whole firewall rule set is useless. So keep that in mind. Oh yeah, and there is also a way to set filters per interface. I wouldn't do that. I would go only via the subnets, to be honest. So in most setups, I put it like that I have one dedicated management interface, like 1 gigabit port or something, and that's the one that is allowed to access the management ports, and everything else is client-facing ports that are not exposing the management at all, and they would be on a different subnet. different VLAN, different network, whatever. And I would just match up the source IP in here to these networks, and I would leave the firewall rule set to apply for all interfaces. There is maybe some spoofing risk, but yeah, there is. I think Synology is Linux, so it's gonna reply anyway. I can have a look at the source filtering later. In that case, one could mess with the rules and limit them to specific interfaces. Let me see how that even would work. We're gonna set a rule for the VPN. Okay, so there's a separate rule set. Okay, then I could create an allow rule here. Only select my Docker service. I'm just gonna add this one for purposes of example. Yes, you. And it shall be available to only the VPN subnet. So yeah, it's a bit of overkill in this case, because now you could limit it to specific VPN clients or something. But if it's a dedicated cross network connection, that makes no sense. Okay, and yeah, they ask for prefix length, but they don't accept it in that dialog. You have to actually give the subnet. Okay, should be fine like this. I'm gonna set it to allow, activate the rule, and then we would have this one, and we don't need a deny rule, I think, because we have the catch-all here, which applies to all interfaces. Yeah, that should be fine. The one thing that I immediately see is that we do not actually even see this rule if we don't have a look at this rule set. So I would probably stick to one main rule set and not have a second one, but I'm going to leave it in now because it's not going to kill me. And I checked that the default deny rule is the last one, so I can still access the NAS. Okay, yeah, and you can have you could also like prepare a rule set that is only used during maintenance or something like that, but I normally never needed to do that. Okay, then here's a second client blocking thing. I think this one affects different services or something. I'm not sure anymore, so I'm also setting up this one, and again, the time frame should be a bit longer. This can be a bit shorter. Okay, this is the one that blocks longer. Okay, so in favor of avoiding trouble during debugging, I'm gonna set it up like this. Okay, and here is the list of the trusted clients. Okay, I'm not gonna set up anyone in there. I don't need that. I don't have any trusted client. And down here, denial of service protection. It is mostly meant for if you expose a port to the internet, but it can be turned on without hurting anyone, so it should be turned on. Okay. So for the certificates, one can use an in-house generated certificate. I've also tried out a bit more with creating one at Dyn or at my ISP OVH. There is ways to run Acme via SSH and then via a cron job, but that's a different story. And there used to be a time when HTTP compression was a security risk, so that can be turned off. I have it on because I don't care so much. And also for the TLS settings, it should be set to highest, and it not always is. If you have VMs running or something, or actually in most cases, also the Spectre protection should be turned on. So that's one that I set up pretty late or as the earliest thing, depending on how my day is, because it needs a reboot. Yep. Okay. I have it off because I didn't care and I wanted to have like the 10% performance that it saves or something. I don't remember. And this is only for backups or for a central key management server, something I did not yet ever want to touch. Okay, so I'm gonna save this. I didn't change anything. Okay. All right. This one is definitely to check. Should be disabled. You shouldn't have external access to your NAS via the tunnel from Synology. If you ever use it, you can restrict the services that should be accessible, but basically it's the ones that run over HTTPS, nothing else. And yeah, normally it should be off. Because basically it opens up such a huge security hole by exposing the whole thing to the internet. I mean, they have a proxy in between, but still, it's a different level or a different lower level of security if you have that on. And on any normal environment, I checked that it's off. Shouldn't be on. And that's it for this one. Okay. So we went through the main network and the security menus. That's fine. Let's see if I'm missing something. Yes, I do. Here in the log on portal, there is also a way to have restrictions. You can again filter for IP addresses, and that means you can have settings which clients can at any like under any circumstance log in to this menu, to the web-based menu. And I really recommend setting that up. I mean, you have to be a bit more open in that location because you're still gonna ask for the password and everything. But I don't want any network that I don't own to have access there. So basically, let's say a lab network or something, I don't want that to be able to access it. And that can be done here. Oh, okay, we have time and NTP settings. That's the NTP server for different systems. And on a corporate environment, you have to set the proper NTP server here. They don't do that by default. I'm going to take my ISP in this case. And we would hope that it works. Oh, yeah, it would if I gave the correct host name. That's better. So you can only set up one, which sucks. All of it sucks, but that's just how it is. And you have a time zone setting. Okay. Apply. Should be fine. If not, then it's time to check MTU settings and stuff like that. Okay, then there is notifications. I have them off on this NAS. Or no, actually, I have them enabled. I just don't send them via Synology because this is an Xpanology. I still have broken Synologies around for my licensing, so but yeah, I just sent them directly. The problem with the emails is the amount of emails and the setup. So you can say that you only want to send out critical alerts. That's helpful. And back here, you can define what you would like to be notified for. I think I have that set up from somewhere else with the central management or something. I don't care. To keep it simple, send emails for critical stuff and don't send them for everything because it's idiotic. Like you could have an email notification for every firewall access that was blocked or something. That just doesn't make your life better. And set up a proper email prefix here. But basically, there is like a few hundred events that can be notified. This is the wrong menu now. Just a second. Okay, it just says critical. I don't recall. I forgot this one. Edit. Ah, okay. Critical is a standard rule, cannot be changed. Okay, so once I also set this up proper, it depends on if you run backups over the NAS or something like that, then you need to have a few rules more. I can show a different example another time. Okay, that's it over here. Security settings, we need an alert if, yeah, basically you wanted to send an alert if the disks fail or stuff like that. I have mine shutting down or not. It doesn't matter for anybody. And here, this is also important. If you have an UPS, this is where you actually inform the Synology to shut down if the battery, if the power has failed. Okay, that's almost it. Normally, I have it set to automatically install updates. I've not have any bad experiences with that, and a lot better ones than if I have to do it on my own. But you should think about when you do it. I normally, Monday morning or Tuesday morning, so that it actually escalates in the morning after already having done the backups and stuff like that. You can have an automatic configuration backup to Synology for highly critical, security critical systems. Yeah, but you have to check it, these encryption settings because some, I think, work via the Synology keys. But still, it's an important feature. Otherwise, if you don't have that, you can export all your settings and download them, which is great. Just there's a step after that where you actually have to copy this file somewhere, and it has to be a secure location. So it's not done by just downloading it. You don't want it in your download folder, which is accessible to your browser. Okay, that's this. And finally, application permissions. That matters. You don't normally want to have the standard groups to be allowed to do every access. For example, in this case here, I had created a certificate administrator, and it is actually blocked out from most stuff. That's nice. I don't have group permissions here, but here, back here, oops, this would be allowed to every user. So you remove that. And then it's a lot better. Okay, so I don't have FTP enabled, but I also don't need to enable this permission. I'm keeping DSM for a moment because that's more critical. SFTP should not be on. And rsync, yeah, I might have used that at a point in the past. I'm just still gonna turn it off so that I later find out what I did wrong, and then I can fix it better than the other way around. And now there is also the backup permissions. Active Backup has 3 services. This is for using the application. So backup administrator, the agent, that's the thing that runs on clients that have a get a backup, and the portal is for restores. All 3 of them should not be enabled for every user. Normally you have different users per client or per purpose, and they shouldn't have full access. And File Station basically is to download or upload files from Synology, which is fair. SMB is for accessing our Windows, which is fair. So I'm going to keep these enabled. And in some cases, I also, like if it's a very user-facing system, I turn on the universal search that people can have an easy file search. Like if it's an archival system or something like that, maybe it would be on. DSM basically is the admin interface here. You can log in that case, and you can click on File Station. So that's why I have it on in normal environments, but if it would be more security conscious, I would remove that permission. Okay, and then indexing doesn't matter. When it matters, if you have sensitive data, then it has to be off, but in this case, I don't have anything enabled. Okay, now we go to the group settings, and group. Here again, we have some default permissions. I think, yeah, here's the application permissions and stuff. Or this was for the share, I think. No. Yeah, that's the share permissions. Okay. So you can set up this stuff. You can set group quotas, which matter a lot. But basically, I don't mess around here as much as I mess around in the application permissions where we just were. We can check again. This is fine. If I had a backup group, then I could enable the active backup client from there. Also, here is if you can send a password reset mail, the rules for passwords, and I would support like having better rules instead of having people like fighting with their passwords. And you can set up the two-factor authentication via the per user settings. So here for myself, I have it enabled, and for the other users, I don't. And every time, or since this century, people, since this decade, people at Synology by default disable the admin user to block the simplest form of brute forcing. Okay, and then for SMB, there is not much in real security settings, I think. Oh yeah, of course there is. You have to enable the highest level at all of these, and you can enforce, or yeah, you can enforce all signing and security if your clients support it. Otherwise, it should be on client defined. But these here matter. If you don't set it to SMB2, you're gonna have security downgrades, which can be easily exploited. And back here, um, nothing important, I think. This one matters. You want to allow multiple connections from the same IP, and until M1 off has to be disabled. Yeah, that's the main security thing. The master browser has to be disabled to avoid messing up networks. It doesn't matter what domain you're in. If you're on the subnet and you have a master browser enabled, you're gonna mess up things for the actual Windows environment. Okay, that's it. Oh, this is like a thin provisioning thing, but I don't have tested enabling it. Oh yeah, damn it. And there's logging settings, which also matter. Where are they? Oh shit. Save. Ah, here. Okay. So this is the actual audit logs, and they're not really Windows compatible, and they're pretty disgusting. But you need to have some manner of SMB audit logs. In this case, I have delete and renames. The problem is if you turn on writes, you would get a million entries. If you have if you enable renames and creates and so on. Yeah, it depends on the share. If it's one that contains critical data, you basically should turn on at least these. Otherwise, you're gonna miss stuff. But you cannot set it up per share, so I can do that. But it's gonna be pretty messy in the log files. That's the problem. But basically, you should check that they're on at all if there's some window share that is used. Yeah. And down here, the discovery services, that's your PNP and broadcasts and stuff. If you have that enabled, then the NAS is going to be visible. So that's important. And you've seen the firewall rules. There's no good way to set up outgoing rules. So if that's on, then the NAS is going to be visible. If you want to have it a bit more stealthy, then that should be off. But in that case, you're also probably only going to do outgoing connections from it. Okay, NFS. I haven't done much of NFS security, to be honest, in many years, so I'm just going to leave it at that. All the other services should be off. This is important if you have virtual machines running or something, or snapshotting, then this quick clone should be on. Here is another network, discovery services and SSDP. No, that doesn't matter, but I have it enabled because basically in my lab environment, I absolutely love it to just see where stuff is. Okay, that's it. Otherwise, if the system is not to be seen, then it has to be off here, and there has to be a firewall blocking the access from clients that you don't want. Okay. I'm gonna die if I don't stop now, but also I think that was the most important part. Yeah. Okay. That was like 80 or 90% of the security settings. I might have missed one somewhere. Oh yeah, you always want the automatic redirect to enforce HTTPS here, the logon settings, but I think that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, look at this reverse proxy setting. That has to be off. It should not allow any access from anywhere. And that would be a thing that attackers typically enable, of course. Yeah, okay. I think that's all of them.